Welcome to A Year of War and Peace. I'm your host, Brian E. Denton. A Year of War and Peace is a daily, year-long, chapter-by-chapter reading of and meditation on Leo Tolstoy's epic novel, War and Peace. In these videos and podcasts, you'll be treated to a free reading of one chapter per day of the novel, plus a reflective essay I've written individually tailored to that day's chapter. These readings are offered for free, though if you'd like to support me, you can do so in one of three ways. First, you could purchase my ebook, A Year of War and Peace. It features the entire novel, plus all of my reflective essays, and it's only $2.99 on Amazon.com. You could also become a patron at patreon.com/Brian E. Denton. If you sign up there, you'll receive a sonnet once a month, plus a link to an ebook of my collected sonnets. Finally, if you like, you can make a one-time donation to my PayPal account. The email there is brianedenton@gmail.com. You can also use that email to contact me. I'd be happy to hear from you. Your support is greatly appreciated. Today's reading and reflection is on Chapter 156. Chapter 156. On returning late in the evening, Sonia went to Natasha's room, and to her surprise, found her still dressed and asleep on the sofa. Open on the table, beside her lay Anatoly's letter. Sonia picked it up and read it. As she read, she glanced at the sleeping Natasha, trying to find in her face an explanation for what she was reading, but did not find it. Her face was calm, gentle, and happy. Clutching her breast to keep herself from choking, Sonia, pale and trembling with fear and agitation, sat down in an armchair and burst into tears. How was it I noticed nothing? How could it go so far? Can she have left off loving Prince Andrew? And how could she let Karágin go to such lengths? He is a deceiver and a villain, that's plain. How will Nicholas, dear noble Nicholas, do when he hears of it? So this is the meaning of her excited, resolute, unnatural look the day before yesterday, and today, thought Sonia. But it can't be that she loves him. She probably opened the letter without knowing who it was from. Probably she is offended by it. She could not do such a thing. Sonia wiped away her tears and went up to Natasha, again scanning her face. "Natasha," she said, just audibly. Natasha awoke and saw Sonia. "Ah, you're back." And with decision and tenderness that often come at a moment of awakening, she remembered her friend. But noticing Sonia's look of embarrassment, her own face expressed confusion and suspicion. "Sonia, have you read that letter?" she demanded. "Yes," answered Sonia softly. Natasha smiled rapturously. "No, Sonia, I can't any longer," she said. "I can't hide it from you any longer. You know we love one another. Sonia, darling, he writes. Sonia!" Sonia stared open-eyed at Natasha, unable to believe her ears. "And Bolkonsky?" she asked. "Oh, Sonia, if you only knew how happy I am," cried Natasha. "You don't know what love is." "But Natasha, can it be that all that is over?" Natasha looked at Sonia with wide-open eyes, as if she could not grasp the question. "Well, then, are you refusing Prince Andrew?" said Sonia. "Oh, you don't understand anything. Don't talk nonsense. Just listen," said Natasha, with momentary vexation. "But I can't believe it," insisted Sonia. "I don't understand. How is it you have loved a man for a whole year, and suddenly... Why, you have only seen him 3 times, Natasha. I don't believe you. You're joking. In 3 days to forget everything, and so..." "3 days?" said Natasha. "It seems to me I've loved him 100 years. It seems to me I have never loved anyone before. You can't understand it." "Sonia, wait a bit. Sit here," said Natasha. And Natasha embraced and kissed her. "I had heard that it happens like this, and you must have heard it too. But it's only now that I feel such love. It's not the same as before. As soon as I saw him, I felt that he was my master, and I his slave, and that I could not help loving him. Yes, his slave. Whatever he orders, I shall do. You don't understand that. What can I do? What can I do, Sonia?" cried Natasha, with a happy, yet frightened expression. "But think of what you're doing," cried Sonia. "I can't leave it like this secret correspondence. How could you let it go so far?" she went on, with a horror and disgust she could hardly conceal. "I told you that I have no will," Natasha replied. "Why can't you understand? I love him." "Then I won't let it come to that. I shall tell," cried Sonia, bursting into tears. What do you mean? For God's sake, if you tell, you are my enemy, declared Natasha. You want me to be miserable. You want us to be separated. When she saw Natasha's fright, Sonia shed tears of shame and pity for her friend. But what has happened between you? She asked. What has he said to you? Why doesn't he come to the house? Natasha did not answer her questions. For God's sake, Sonia, don't tell anyone. Don't torture me, Natasha entreated. Remember, no one ought to interfere in such matters. I have confided in you. But why this secrecy? Why doesn't he come to the house? Asked Sonia. Why doesn't he openly ask for your hand? You know Prince Andrew gave you complete freedom, if it is really so, but I don't believe it. Natasha, have you considered what these secret reasons can be? Natasha looked at Sonia with astonishment. Evidently this question presented itself to her mind for the first time, and she did not know how to answer it. I don't know what the reasons are, but there must be reasons. Sonia sighed and shook her head incredulously. If there were reasons, she began. But Natasha, guessing her doubts, interrupted her in alarm. Sonia, one can't doubt him. One can't. Don't you understand? She cried. Does he love you? Does he love me? Natasha repeated with a smile and a look of pity at her friend's lack of comprehension. Why, you have read his letter, and you have seen him. But if he is dishonorable? He? Dishonorable? If you only knew, exclaimed Natasha. If he is an honorable man, he should either declare his intentions or cease seeing you. And if you won't do this, I will. I will write to him, and I will tell Papa, said Sonia resolutely. But I can't live without him, cried Natasha. Natasha, I don't understand you. What are you saying? Think of your father. Think of Nicholas. I don't want anyone. I don't love anyone but him. How dare you say he is dishonorable? Don't you know that I love him? Screamed Natasha. Go away, Sonia. I don't want to quarrel with you, but go, for God's sake, go. You see how I am suffering, Natasha cried angrily, in a voice of despair and repressed irritation. Sonia burst into sobs and ran from the room. Natasha went to the table and without a moment's reflection wrote that answer to Princess Mary, which she had been unable to write all the morning. In this letter, she said briefly that all their misunderstandings were at an end, that availing herself of the magnanimity of Prince Andrew, who when he went abroad had given her freedom, she begged Princess Mary to forget everything and forgive her if she had been to blame toward her, but that she could not be his wife. At that moment, this all seemed quite easy, simple, and clear to Natasha. On Friday, the Rostovs were to return to the country, but on Wednesday, the Count went with the prospective purchaser to his estate near Moscow. On the day the Count left, Sonia and Natasha were invited to a big dinner party at the Karagins, and Maria Dmitrievna took them there. At that party, Natasha again met Anatoly, and Sonia noticed that she spoke to him, trying not to be overheard, and that all through dinner she was more agitated than ever. When they got home, Natasha was the first to begin the explanation Sonia expected. There, Sonia, you were talking all sorts of nonsense about him, Natasha began in a mild voice, such as children use when they wish to be praised. We have had an explanation today. Well, what happened? What did he say? Natasha, how glad I am you're not angry with me. Tell me everything. Tell me the whole truth. What did he say? Natasha became thoughtful. Oh, Sonia, if you only knew him as I do. He asked me what I had promised Bolkonsky. He was glad I was free to refuse him. Sonia sighed sorrowfully. But you haven't refused Bolkonsky, said she. Perhaps I have. Perhaps all is over between me and Bolkonsky. Why do you think so badly of me? I don't think anything, only I don't understand this. Wait a bit, Sonia. You'll understand everything. You'll see what a man he is. Now don't think badly of me or of him. I don't think badly of anyone. I love and pity everybody. But what am I to do? Sonia did not succumb to the tender tone Natasha used towards her. The more emotional and ingratiating the expression of Natasha's face became, the more serious and stern grew Sonia's. Natasha, said she, you asked me not to speak to you, and I haven't spoken. But now you yourself have begun. I don't trust him, Natasha. Why this secrecy? Again, interrupted Natasha. Natasha, I am afraid for you. Afraid of what? I'm afraid you're going to your ruin, said Natasha resolutely. and was herself horrified at what she had said. Anger again showed in Natasha's face. "And I'll go to my ruin. I will, as soon as possible. It's not your business. It won't be you, but I who'll suffer. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. I hate you." "Natasha," moaned Sonia, aghast. "I hate you. I hate you. You're my enemy forever." And Natasha ran from the room. Natasha did not speak to Sonia again and avoided her. With the same expression of agitated surprise and guilt, she went about the house, taking up now one occupation, now another, and at once abandoning them. Hard as it was for Sonia, she watched her friend and did not let her go out of her sight. The day before the Count was to return, Sonia noticed that Natasha sat by the drawing-room window all the morning, as if expecting something, and that she made a sign to an officer who drove past, whom Sonia knew to be Anatoly. Sonia began watching her friend still more attentively, and noticed that at dinner and all that evening, Natasha was in a strange and unnatural state. She answered questions at random, began sentences she did not finish, and she laughed at everything. After tea, Sonia noticed a housemaid at Natasha's door timidly waiting to let her pass. She let the girl go in, and then listening at the door, learned that another letter had been delivered. Then suddenly it became clear to Sonia that Natasha had some dreadful plan for that evening. Sonia knocked at her door. Natasha did not let her in. She will run away with him, thought Sonia. She's capable of anything. There was something particularly pathetic and resolute in her face today. She cried as she said goodbye to Uncle, Sonia remembered. Yes, that's it. She means to elope with him. But what am I to do, thought she, recalling all the signs that clearly indicated that Natasha had some terrible intention. The Count is away. What am I to do? Write to Kuragin, demanding an explanation? But what is there to oblige him to reply? Write to Pierre, as Prince Andrew asked me to in case of some misfortune? But perhaps she really has already refused Bolkonsky. She sent a letter to Princess Mary yesterday, and Uncle is away. To tell Maria Dmitrievna, who had such faith in Natasha, seemed to Sonia terrible. Well, anyway, thought Sonia, as she stood in the dark passage, now or never I must prove that I remember the family's goodness to me, and that I love Nicholas. Yes, if I don't sleep for 3 nights, I'll not leave this passage, and will hold her back by force, and will not let the family be disgraced, she thought. All right, that concludes my reading of chapter 156, The Intrigue Heightens. I'll now proceed to my reflection on chapter 156. A Year of War and Peace, day 156. Control. Natasha cannot control herself. Anatoly has her upside down and inside out. So much so that her decision-making faculties are approaching Tantalusian proportions. First, she willingly describes her relationship with Anatoly as being analogous to that of a master and a slave. If history teaches us anything, it is that that type of relationship is neither the most morally salubrious nor naturally lawful of associations. Hasn't this chick anachronistically read her Douglas? Nevertheless, Natasha exclaims to Sonia, "Whatever he orders, I shall do." Further, Natasha refuses to consider Sonia's rather sensible questions about Anatoly. Why, Sonia wonders, does he not ask for her hand? Why the sneaking around? What if he's a dishonorable man? Sonia's advocacy on Natasha's behalf should, under normal circumstances, be met with some amount of gratitude. Under Anatoly's spell, however, Natasha screams that she hates Sonia. Her decisions only keep getting worse. She also replies to Mary's letter. Only instead of agreeing to forgive old Prince Bolkonsky and work something out, she decides instead to inform Mary that she can no longer marry Prince Andrew. Natasha's worst error in judgment comes at the end of the chapter. Here she meets with Anatoly during a dinner at the Karaginas. Sonia watches the two secretly planning something. Sonia, sensing that something is up, commits herself to guarding Natasha to make sure she doesn't do anything that would ruin her. In the end, however, Natasha must be responsible for Natasha. She's clearly swept away by her emotions, and that's not exactly the ideal state of mind to make life-altering decisions. We've written previously on the benefits of distancing oneself from emotional experiences before acting upon them. We suggest that course of action again here. Daily Meditations. When you are struck by the impression of some pleasure, Guard yourself, as with impressions generally, against being carried away by it. Rather, let the matter await your leisure and allow yourself a measure of delay. Epictetus, Enchiridion. And also from the Enchiridion, try, therefore, in the first place, not to be carried away by the impression. For if you once gain time and respite, you will find it easier to control yourself. All right, so that concludes my reading of and reflection on chapter 156. I hope you liked it. Thanks so much for joining me today. Remember that if you'd like to support me, you can do so either by purchasing the ebook, A Year of War and Peace, becoming a patron at patreon.com, or making a one-time donation to PayPal. The links to all that are down below in the show notes. Tomorrow we're going to be reading and reflecting on chapter 157. I hope you'll join me. Until then, take care of yourselves and others.